Dr. Livingston Smith was just talking about what we're capable of doing to our fellow humans. So I want you to think about that for a second and then transfer it and think about what we're capable of doing to the other species on this planet. So the title of my talk, Are Elephants Worth Saving? I'm going to wrap that up quickly. It's a rhetorical question. Yes. So elephants. They're iconic. They speak to us all. This is a young bull in Botswana. This is in the Okavango Delta. And Botswana has one of the largest remaining elephant populations in the world. There's about 100,000 elephants there, which doesn't sound like a lot of elephants. And it's not. So I've got a quick question. Who here likes elephants? Raise your hand if you like elephants. That's kind of flabbergasting, considering that we live in a country that does not have elephants as an indigenous species. They are part of our culture. They are part of what we have when we grow up, whether it's Horton or Dumbo or Barbabar. And they're very important to us. And I think it's great that so many people raise their hands. And it speaks to not only why we should save them, but how we're going to save them. It's the emotion that you felt when I asked that question that allowed you to raise your hand, got you to raise your hand. And that's what we need to galvanize if this species is going to survive. At TED, everyone's got their exciting, intriguing, funny sort of starting point. I don't have that. What I have for you is the information that elephants are going extinct. It's happening right now. The poster child for extinction, the dodo. You can think of lots of animals that are extinct, dinosaurs. The dodo is special in the sense that this animal is extinct because of humans. We are solely responsible for the extinction of this animal. This is what the future holds for elephants. Now, the time frame is probably what's going to surprise you. You may have known that elephants are going extinct. I don't know if you did. You may not. If you did know, it's probably not something you think about on a daily basis. You know, we are bombarded by information every single day. We have lots of things, quite rightly, that take up our mental space. Did I forget my anniversary? Is there enough milk in the fridge? What's going on with Justin Bieber's hair? What's going on with Donald Trump's hair, for that matter? These are all reasonable questions, but right now I'd like to focus on elephants for the next 15 minutes or so. Elephants, I'm going to give you a bit of a background. End of the Cretaceous, about 65 million years ago. It's taken 24 million generations for an animal the size of a mouse to grow to the size of today's elephant. Probably about 350 proboscis species over the course of evolution. Today we are left with 3. This one's a beauty. This is a bull African elephant. This is a bush elephant, Loxodonta africana. So at the beginning of the 20th century, you had 7 to 10 million African elephants. By 1980, down to about 1.5 million. CITES came in 1989, there was a ban. They recovered. But now, all of a sudden, we find ourselves down to 300,000 African elephants left on the planet. That equates to 1 dying every 15 minutes right now. Last year, 30,000 elephants killed by poachers. So by the time I finish my talk, we've lost another one. This one here, this one's one that people don't really know that much about. This is an African elephant too, Loxodonta cyclotis, the forest elephant. And it's exciting. It's a new species. It didn't just arrive, but we only decided to make it its own species in 1991. In the last 10 years, we've lost 76% of the population of forest elephants. And Elephas maximus. This one here, the Asian elephant, actually more closely related to mammoths than to African elephants. So just to put this in perspective for you, we're in Maine, so you guys have all probably been to Fenway or know of Fenway. Everyone's Red Sox nation. So, you know, you can fit more people in Fenway when the Red Sox are playing than there are Asian elephants left on the planet. The other elephants we were talking about, obviously Ivory is the reason that elephants are disappearing from our planet. Ivory is an issue with Asian elephants as well. One difference between Asian and African elephants is that in the African species, both the males and the females have ivory. In the Asian species, just the males have ivory, which means that only the males are poached. And as a result, what would be a normal male-to-female ratio would be 1 to 4. Today, you're looking at something closer to 1 male to 40 females. So you can see, not only is it a small population, they're in isolated pockets, and they have major issues in terms of their long-term survival. Even if the population grows, the genetic base is severely diminished. The major issue with Asian elephants, as opposed to African elephants, is habitat loss. Palm oil plantations have been getting a lot of press lately. But of course, ivory. So, I mean, ivory's great. If you're a media guy, you love ivory because it's very exciting, it's very dramatic. Poachers today are very sophisticated. This isn't just some random guy with a rifle going out and shooting an elephant. There are people in helicopters with grenade launchers taking out entire herds of elephants. You know, you can just about see the next movie coming with Brad Pitt in khakis doing roundhouse kicks, taking out poachers. I mean, it's very, it captures the imagination. You know, it's reached the point where humans are now actually an evolutionary pressure on elephants. We are causing the, we are causing the size of ivory to drop. In 1970, an average piece of ivory was about 27 pounds. Today, you're down to about 6 pounds. The underlying problem overall is, in fact, us. Population growth, we're at about 7.5 billion people now. And habitat encroachment and conflict with elephants is what is going to be the downfall of both African and Asian elephants if we do solve the ivory issue. So for the rest of the talk, I'm going to talk about elephants in one big group, all 3 species together. The conservation and ecological issues that face them both are very similar. So I'm just going to tie them all together. How do we save them? Is it possible to save them? What's the reason for keeping elephants around? Economics, you know, that's something that we all love. And economics, we've created a world in which economics is the be-all and the end-all. So if a species or an animal is going to survive, it needs to justify itself economically. Tourist industry in Africa, for example, worth about $3.7 billion a year. That's a fair chunk of change. That's pretty reasonable. On the scale of things, it's not going to be enough, though. Even Kenya, which is not a particularly wealthy country, the GDP of Kenya is $37 billion a year. America, of course, $15 trillion a year. South Africa, $368 billion a year. In terms of the impact that can have, it could have a huge impact. It could have a great impact helping elephants in their range countries. The problem is that only 4 to 6% of the money from tourism goes to the areas that it needs to. Only 4 to 6% of that income is going to the poorer people in elephant conflict areas. If conservation is going to work, that money needs to be going and supporting the people who are living with the elephants. If they don't have an incentive to keep elephants around, they're not going to do it. You wouldn't do it. If you had a grizzly bear walking through your house, you're not going to say, oh, it's okay, it's cool, it's a grizzly bear. Ah, it ate my child, that's not a big deal. You are going to do something about it. And these people have the right to do that too. So economics, it's a start. There's definitely a big lag between what elephants produce, if you look at a direct value, and what is needed for their survival. The missing piece needs to come from us. It needs to come from philanthropy. The very basis of our economies stand on the shoulders of colonial rule. Whether it's Queen Victoria's tea or King Leopold's rubber, global economic disparity is partly a result of our history and what we've done. So, you know, we can give a little bit back, I think. Biodiversity, another great reason to keep elephants around. Elephants are a keystone species. In fact, they're a super keystone species, which is even more exciting. They define the ecosystems in which they live. So why have biodiversity? I mean, that's just a word. People throw it around all the time. What's the point? Why should we keep biodiversity? Well, for a start, the natural systems that allowed us as a species to evolve are dependent on ecosystems working properly, and that is dependent on a broad base of biodiversity. We don't know how many pieces of an ecosystem we lose before the whole system collapses. Elephants are incredibly important for nutrient recycling. They're important for seed dispersal. They eat about 300 to 400 different plant species, and they disperse those seeds all over the place. They also create microhabitats. They drag along lots of other animals with them. The acacia here is the classic example. And of course, these guys, dung beetles, I like them. They're cute. They're up here. These guys, actually, this is the Addo dung beetle. It's going extinct right now because elephants have disappeared from the area that this beetle was indigenous to. They don't have any food, and so they're going extinct. So there we have one example of the first step of the knock-on effects. Just as a quick side, you could argue, why should I save elephants? I live in Maine. Let's focus on the moose. That's a good question. As you move away from the equator, biodiversity drops rapidly. The largest amount of biodiversity you will find is in, coincidentally, elephant range areas. So that's point one. Point two, and this, I had to go to college to figure this out. Elephants are really large, which means to save elephants, you have to save a lot of land. And if you save a lot of land, you are dragging along every other plant and animal species in that larger area. So their sheer size is a good candidate. If you're going to pick one animal, dollar for dollar, elephants are the way to go. So that's part of it. What is conservation? How do we do this? When I worked in Botswana, I worked next to a park, and there were poachers in that park. And on one very exciting occasion, the owner of the camp flew in his plane, and he landed, and he said, "There's poachers, let's go." So we all jump in the car, and we charge around, several cars running around. And after about 3 hours, we found these poachers. They were just charging off from the camp. They'd been riding down zebras and spearing them. And they were going to take the meat and sell the skins. And so we caught them. We caught one of them. The rest of them got away. I wasn't that good. And so we had this guy in the back of the truck, and we're driving him to the police station. And I'm sitting there, and I'm looking back at him. And he's in these dirty Western cast-offs. He's got skins for boots. And he doesn't look very happy, understandably. And I sat there, and I was asking myself, OK, it's great. We did a good thing here. We stopped someone from killing animals in a protected area. And that's simple on the face of it. But when you dig a little bit deeper, you face the obvious conundrum. This guy, what's he doing? He's out there, he's killing these animals, which is a resource in his country, and he's doing it so he can feed his family, and he can sell the skins and make a little bit of money. I mean, is that a terrible thing for someone to do? It's very easy for us here in our more comfortable lifestyle in North America to look at black and white here, but if you really want to make a difference, it has to be tied to economic development in the communities around elephants and around wildlife. You can't take away the income they would get from poaching and not replace it with something. What incentive is there? There's none. So for conservation to work, you have to change the idea, and you have to say, conservation isn't about animals, it's about people. It's about a cohesive long-term plan. It's about education. It's about stimulating growth in the communities so that they have an alternative, so they don't have to go and use the wildlife resource right next to them. Ivory, it's a $1 billion industry. This might surprise you. America remains, to this day, one of the largest markets in the world for ivory. And it comes in under the guise of antique ivory, and tons and tons of ivory is being sold in this country every day. Everyone likes to blame China. It's easy because they're far away and they can't answer back. And it's true, they are driving this current boom in ivory poaching, rapidly expanding middle class. The one point I want to make about ivory, there has to be a complete ban utterly on ivory all over the place. The whole world, no antique ivory, no new ivory. It's important that we take away the value. If you attribute a value to something, you create a market. It's very simple. The only way to stop ivory poaching is to eliminate the market. It's possible in Asia, after a concerted education movement, 70% of the consumption of shark fin soup, it dropped 70% last year. It took 2 years. So I don't want to hear anyone saying we can't do it. It's too big a problem. The ivory trade's going to be easier than habitat loss to deal with, but I'm not saying it's easy, but it's a starting point and we can do it. It has to be through education, and you have to get involved. I mentioned a few pop culture references. It's important for elephants to be front and center. If you take them away, if they're not in the public eye, no one cares about them. They need to be out there. You go to Germany, last year 40 million people went to see elephants in zoos. That's more people going to see elephants in zoos than went to watch soccer games. And believe me, they like their soccer in Germany. It's important, because that's where the funding that is going to save the species comes from. Most of you said you liked elephants. If this is true, we need to reach a tipping point where that emotion and that feeling you have translates into involvement. It's entirely possible to do this. Elephants are a keystone species, not just in the ecological sense, but also in the conservation sense. They're an icon. If we lose elephants, if we can't pull it together to save elephants, you're not going to do it for a tree frog. You're not going to do it for a nematode. It's the end. It's the beginning of the end. If we lose elephants, it's dominoes, and everything else goes afterwards. If we lose elephants, we've not just lost elephants, we've lost a piece of our humanity. Elephants are sentient, empathetic animals, and human empathy, regardless of what we may have just heard, is real. It's what's allowed us as a population to grow to 7.5 billion. David Attenborough, Jane Goodall, Daphne Sheldrake, they're figureheads, but they are nothing without the population that supports them. Public pressure saved the great whales from extinction in the 70s and the 80s. Ted Turner saved the buffalo. Yay, Ted. I put it to you that it's up to you to inspire everyone you speak to save the elephants. Thank you very much.